And we are live! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of We Are Trans presents Trans Talks. We are back with another lovely guest. I am so excited. She is an actress, an activist, an amazing human being. Please welcome Pooya Mohseni.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Sammie.
Hi. First thing I ask is tell the folks watching a little bit more about yourself, specifically pronouns, even though they are on screen,
Mm-hmm.
and what words you use to describe yourself. That can be
Okay.
identity, but any words that come to you.
Oh my God. Choices. Okay. Who am I? Hi, everyone. I'm Pooya. I'm an Iranian American actor, writer, consultant, and trans advocate. I'm based in New York City. And words to describe myself. Well, I will tell you words that other people use to describe me. Elegant, sophisticated, strong, maternal. I would personally also add sassy and silly AF.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I'd agree with in my limited time knowing you, I would agree with all of that.
My brand, darling, my brand.
Thank you so much for being here. Question I try to ask. I noticed just as I was getting ready for this, hey, that question I planned on asking every person. I didn't ask the last two, but it's my favorite question. It's I really it's I think the most important question we ask on this show, because there is so much focus on in popular uh in popular portrayals of trans people and interviews with trans people on dysphoria. I like to ask, what gives you gender euphoria? That's more important. That's what we care about.
Yeah, I think this is also the most important thing. Dysphoria gets attached to gender, but we all have dysphoria, whether
Exactly.
it happens to be, whether it's, the hair on our head or do we fit our vision of how thin or how muscular we want to be? Gender is just part of that. It's like it's an outward manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't separate it from that. And I'm old enough to be able to see it from that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the same thing with transitioning is like when people are like, when did you transition? I'm like, darling, we're always transitioning until we die, and then we stop transitioning.
Uh-huh.
But it's kind of like, it's just, we're always evolving. That's just
Mm-hmm.
part of a living being thing. It's just, as a trans person, it's something very specific, but we're all doing it. Euphoria, I actually, thank you for asking me that, because within the last year or so, this is one of the things I love telling my kids. And as you and I have spoken before, your audience doesn't know, but when I say my kids, I mean my community kids. I mean younger members of the queer community, more specifically the trans and non-binary community, which I am grateful enough that I get to be kind of a community mother in that sense. What do I say? I say different things about what it means to be a woman of trans experience. It's like we're the equators of gender. Gender is just this long spectrum, and trans people are just somewhere closer to the middle of it. They're not like dead in the middle. They're a little more this way or a little more that way, but the whole human species on the spectrum. But the one thing that I have started saying within the last year is I tell my queer kids, I'm like, think of yourself as the emeralds of gender, as the emeralds of the human species. And why do I say that? Because first of all, I like emeralds. But second of all, the reason we love emeralds is because they're unique. They are very unique. Certain minerals have to come together under very specific circumstances for emeralds to shape. Well, isn't that the gender nonconforming experience. So we are the emeralds of gender. And by that exact description, and the fact that when it comes to unique things, we value them more because they're unique, I also invite people to look at gender nonconformity that same way. Is that we're unique, and maybe we have something of value to offer the rest of society. Maybe we can show the inconsistencies, the hypocrisies, the arbitrary nature of gender and what we assign to people based on that gender. So we're the emeralds of gender. And I think we can help illuminate battle of the sexes, battle of genders. Maybe it doesn't need to be there, because as a trans person, I can tell you that all of this stuff, man, woman stuff is just so friggin' arbitrary. But also I want to tell our kids that I'm like, you being different from other people, you having a different view on yourself, on your identity, on your gender, on your journey, that should be something that you value, that you embrace, that sets you apart, that gives you a wider vision of the human experience than if you were not. And yes, the outside world is like, no, you're the weirdos, you're the freaks, you should be this and you should be that. Well, I have one thing to say to that. The earth ain't flat either. So for all those people that used to think that the earth was flat and you just went from one side to the other side and then you fell off the edge, well, that doesn't happen. And gender isn't like this monolithic, X and Y thing. And I'm through my journey, through the trials, through being exposed to other people who are even further along in their understanding of their identity and their journey, and I learn from them, and I try to share that with other people around me. But that's how I look at it, is everything in life, it's not circular, it's spiral. Everything is always evolving into something else. Now, sometimes we appreciate that, sometimes we don't.
I like that. I like that spiral analogy.
Yeah, you can either spiral down, or you can spiral up, or you can spiral forward. But it's a spiral. That's how life.
Yeah, no, I'm into that. I'm gonna steal that. It's on. It's recorded. Everyone heard me say it. Yeah. So, what are recent projects that people watching might know you from?
Well, I mean, there are the horror fans who still very much love Terrifier.
Mm-hmm.
But within the last 1.5 to 2 years, I've also done other projects. There is a thriller called Heather with Nick Matthews and Sean Young, the iconic Sean Young is also going to be in it. I also do have to say, if you look up Heather and my name and Sean Young, you're going to see this news headline that says, Sean Young to join Pooya Mohseni in trans thriller. There's no such thing as a trans thriller. It's a thriller with a trans character. It does not change the genre of the thriller. It does not. We don't say white people thriller. We don't say, it's like women over 40 thriller. We say thriller. That is what it is. Yeah. It's a kind of like a revenge movie. It's tragic, it's tender, it's intense, to say the least. At one point of it, you may or may not see me in a black leather bustier.
Okay.
It's a possibility, unless it gets cut, then I guess you're not going to see me in a leather bustier. But there is a movie that's very dear and special to my heart that made its premiere in South by Southwest, that we shot at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic, right before the lockdowns, literally like 5 weeks before the lockdowns, called See You Then. It was written by two amazing Asian American women, Christine Uno and Murray Walker, who Murray Walker is also the editor of the film, the director of it, one of the producers of it. And the collaboration between these two amazing women, one of whom is cis, one of whom is trans, that itself should be something that people take into account, the collaboration. But then the lead actors, I'm one of them. I play an Iranian American character who happens to be trans. And my character is meeting up with her old friend, who is played by the amazing Lin Chen. Again, another Asian American, Chinese American, Taiwanese American actor, talented as can be. And it's basically a chamber piece, a conversation between these two people who they are meeting up for the first time in 15 years. And there's a lot said about dating, motherhood, life, where you want it to go, where it ends up going, and how you deal with that. It's a beautiful movie. I am very proud to have been part of it. It made its premiere this year in South by Southwest. It has gone through many festivals, Disorient Film Festival, where we won Audience Choice Award, Sun Valley Film Festival, where we won Best Narrative Feature. We were at Over the Rhine Film Festival in Cincinnati. Next week, I'm going to Bentonville, Arkansas for the Bentonville Film Festival. 2 weeks after that, it's going to be at Outfest in LA. There are more festivals coming, and we just got picked up for distribution by Breaking Glass Pictures at Cannes Marché, which is, for those who don't know, I had to look it up, is basically the market part of the Cannes Film Festivals, where distributors pick films to distribute. So our film is going to have cinematic distribution in the US in 2022, which I'm very happy to announce.
Awesome.
And the most recent, I mean, there are also a lot of, smaller projects that I'm collaborating on, either the story, but also last weekend I had the good fortune of being one of the actors in a short film that was written by Owen King, directed by Destry Alan Spielberg, and the two main actors were Hopper Penn and Brian Darcy James. And, it's like, and then I was kind of like the third on the call sheet, and there were three other actors. But not very often I get to be in a project that's a collaboration between Steven Spielberg's daughter and Stephen King's son and Sean Penn's son and Brian Darcy James. And people have said certain things about it that it's like, this is the example of nepotism. And I look at it and I'm like, you know what? These are people whose parents have been in the business, and there's nothing wrong with them wanting to follow their footsteps. And if they are using their privilege to bring in actors from different groups that haven't had a lot of representation, and that's how they're using their privilege, I'm all for it. And I'm glad that I got to be part of that equation. So that's what I've been up to.
Yeah. And something, a recent role, but I actually, 2020 messed everyone up as far as time. But a recent role that some people might know you from or have seen you on was your appearance on SVU.
Okay.
I wonder if you could speak to the experience of being on that show as a judge of all things.
Well, getting the audition for a show like that, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to book it, because it's Law and Order SVU and every actor in New York wants to be on it. But the casting was kind enough that they had me on a short list. I went in, I auditioned. I had a call back that night with Mariska Hargitay herself, because she was the director of that episode as well as being the star of the show and all of those things. And, I booked it. I didn't think I was going to, but as she said it to me later, she's like, she looked at my performance and I had this, what was the word she used? I had this quiet strength. And as I very casually said, I said, because I believe strength is quiet. It's weakness that needs bravado to compensate. which, our ex-president is a prime example of that. And I mean, she is the boss. She is the boss on that set, and she is the boss with so much grace, so much generosity. Like, she is exactly the kind of person you would like to imagine in a position of power, because the way she works with actors, the way she works with other people on set is, everybody knows she's the number one on set, but she wields her power with a certain gracious confidence that is awe-inspiring and definitely educational. But for me, it's also significant because I, as an immigrant woman of Iranian background who happens to also be a person of trans experience, I got to play a judge on this show, which is known and loved by millions of people around the world. And it's not necessarily a show you would call queer-centric or even queer-friendly by any stretch of imagination, but that the powers that be liked what I had to offer and they wanted me in the show. Why it was significant? Because I'm the first Middle Eastern queer person to play that kind of a role, or as a person of trans experience to not play a prostitute in that show, in that kind of a show, a procedural, that kind of a show, which has to do with gruesome acts done by, horrible people. Usually a trans character would end up being a victim or the villain. And I was neither. I was kind of like, I was part of the structure, I was part of the status quo. And I laugh about that. I'm like, the world where I am part of the status quo. That was the significance of that does not escape me. And even more so than in my career and me getting the role is because if I was the first, then there are going to be many people after me. That are going to do that. And I feel it was one tiny step in my career, but I think a huge step in the representation of the community. Part of it, as one of my great teachers says, is part of normalization is, okay, you can play the judge in that, and at that moment that may not seem significant, but as you move forward, as there are more roles like that, as more gender non-conforming people, as people who are just marginalized one way or another get to be in these roles, in these shows that have a very wide base of audience globally, that can normalize who we are, because less people can say, well, I've never met a trans person, or I've never seen a trans person, or I've never known a trans person. Or the representation of our community, which kind of comes from the representation we got in the 90s through Jerry Springer. And that's what I'm doing, because also one of the things I want people to know, people who are not in the community, not every trans person has been to the ballroom. I have never been. I mean, I wish that I had had the opportunity to go. From what I hear, it's very fun. But that's not where we all meet. There are trans people who are not in that world, who may live in the suburbs, who may live in the city, who may be bankers, who may be engineers, who may be dentists. That's kind of like what I would like people, the industry, and then the world at large to just understand. Being a trans person doesn't signify anything else. It's just a part of who you are. Just as being a Black or being Asian or being Jewish or being Muslim doesn't signify anything beyond that. There was a time, people had superstitions and they thought, oh, like, Jews look a certain way. And that was part of the propaganda, which was extremely anti-Semitic. Or Muslims, that all Muslims do this or do that. And in my way, I'm two things. I'm Middle Eastern. I come from a Muslim background. And I also happen to be a woman of trans experience. And I try to be a credit to all that I represent. And through that, being able to let people come to terms with their own ignorance, blind spots, prejudices. If I can do that in my own humble path, then my journey has had a great purpose.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, thank you for. I feel like every answer you've given to the questions has been so fantastic.
Well, you're talking to an actor-writer, Sammie, so I'm writing and acting it all simultaneously.
Yeah. So here's a question. And it's not necessarily it could be interpreted as like what is a dream role of yours, but I'm more asking what is a type of role that you haven't had an opportunity to take on yet that you'd really like the chance to kind of sink your teeth into.
I think in many ways, because I've now been doing this for a little over a decade. And from student films to short films to feature films, I've gotten my hand in like enough different type of roles to know what I really like.
Mm-hmm.
As there are more women and queer writers and filmmakers, I find that I get to play some of the roles I really like. Like I can play community mama roles, I can play mother roles, I can play like the supportive friend, kind of like in a maternal setting, because I'm also getting into that age that
Mm-hmm.
I can realistically play this kind of roles. Um, but especially after doing this project with Destry Allen, um, I sometimes want to say Ms. Spielberg. No, she goes by Destry Allen. It's like I'm like it was a period piece, and I got to kind of like play this ominous character, this beautifully, fabulously stylish ominous character. And I would like more of that. And I will tell you why that's a dream of mine. This is where a lot of those type of roles predominantly have gone to white actresses, because that's been the narrative. If you're very elegant, if you're kind of like that very upper crust quality, those kind of roles have been dominated by white actors and actresses.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they bring in actors of trans experience, it's usually like, something gritty, somebody that has a little bit of street quality. Well, if you talk to me, I don't have a whole lot of street quality. Like, that's just not part of who I am. It's not part of my background, my upbringing, my experience, my lived experience. But I have this very Upper East Side, this very, it's like what I like to call it, creme de la bitch quality. Kind of like fancy pearl wearing, but could also, poison your tea kind of character. I would like more of that in
Mm-hmm.
in good productions, almost like the Joan Collins or any of the fabulous women on the original Dynasty, not the CW, but the original Dynasty from the 80s. Those kind of fabulous women with a whole lot of gravitas, with phenomenal wardrobes. Are you okay, honey?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
allergic to me? You're allergic to me. Okay. Um, see, audience, you see what it is? Sammie's allergic to me. But those kind of roles
I hope
almost
not. That would be
I'm like,
devastating.
you're
That would be
allergic to
devastating.
um, but that role that I was talking about, it's almost like something you get a little bit of glimpse in the scientist I played on Falling Water on USA a few years ago, or the judge role on Law and Order SVU. I can play that woman who is strong and who is smart and who does not have to be in a box. But this business is very box oriented, wants to put everybody into a box. And I think that's the problem. I don't fit into a box. I'm a Middle Eastern woman, but I don't fit their idea of what a Middle Eastern woman looks like. I'm a woman of trans experience, and I also don't fit their idea of what a trans woman looks like. So the times that I get those opportunities to play certain roles is when those people are actually looking for actors who don't fit into a box, but who fit their idea of what the character looks like. That's how I play in this film with Destry, or that's how I get to play the judge, or that's how I get to play the character in See You Then, or even Terrifier. And I would say all of my roles, which I love dearly, that people know about, whether it's TV or film, it's roles that people who cast me were looking for someone who didn't fit into the stereotype of that character and that role. And I'm very grateful to all of those people.
Mm-hmm. So, this question, I feel like you've already tackled it a little bit.
Are you gonna throw me? You're gonna throw me, aren't you? Okay, I'm holding on.
No, you got from all conversations I've ever had with you. You got this.
Okay.
But no, it is. What nonsense are you sick of? I'm just like, you've already tackled it with your answers to so many questions.
Okay, I will give you an answer on this one, because I was submitted for a feature film that was going to be shooting in LA. I'm not going to do names or anything. And the character was the breakdown said a trans character. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, oh, this character looks like she's a character in Power, and with a little bit of tongue in cheek. Great. So I do my self tape and I send it. And then the notes that come back were, let's say, offensive. They wanted the trans character to, and I'm giving you exact words that were used. They wanted this character to be over the top, flippant, larger than life, ghetto fabulous, for lack of a better term, something you'd see on Jerry Springer. Then there were videos sent as inspiration for this character. That were 3 clips of 3 different reality shows. They were all of Black women. Well, one of them was of a Black drag queen. One was of a Black woman in an episode of Divorce Court. And I don't remember what the other clip was. I think the title was, Why Do Ghetto Moms Get Fat? Or some offensive title like that. And then the director had said, oh, this is not about ethnic background. This is about vibe and essence. And I told my agents, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with this. This is offensive. This goes against everything that I believe in, everything I preach, everything I ask the industry for. And here's this one trans character, and the person basically wants me to play a stereotypical Black drag queen as a character they've written as a trans woman of color. And I'm like, I can't do anything to the director, but the least that I can do is I can say, I can't do this. And that was a little difficult for me. And people were like, when was this? I'm like, it was literally a month ago. So, yeah, I basically wanted to tell the writer-director, I'm like, you had in your idea that you wanted to write a ghetto fabulous drag queen, which I can't fault you for wanting to write that, but I can have a huge problem when that is what you have in your mind, but then you put that character out as a trans woman of color. Do you see that? The gap between that? A Black stereotypical reality TV type of drag queen. And then they would say, well, the person that we're going to look for is going to be a trans woman of color. I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but these 2 things are not the same thing. Actually, your stereotypical idea of a Black drag queen, like that has so much problems with it to begin with. Not that I have any problem with the drag queen or a Black drag queen, but it's your idea that has nothing to do with their ethnic background and is a vibe, except what you're not understanding is what you're calling a vibe is an ethnic stereotype. And then you want me, an actor who's not Black or a drag queen, to then replicate that. And I'm like, oh my God, if I do this, I'm never going to be able to live this down, because this is like, I'm going to be looking at it and being like, I'm so sorry I did this. So we still live in that world. We still live in that world that, oh, a drag queen, a trans woman, right? Same thing. I can say that within this year alone,
Yeah.
I have gotten at least 2 instances, one of which was the one I told you, and another one that is like, I read the character, it was a feature script, and somebody told me, oh, I think you'd be great for this. And I read it, and as I'm reading it, and oh, this character that looks so feminine and so sexy in such a feminine way from the back, and then she opens her mouth and she sounds like a, what was the word, like a sailor or something. And I'm like, and you read this and you thought I'd be great for this? It sometimes makes me laugh. But this is this is a fight. I mean, I'm not the first person in this fight. There are many people before me who are fighting this good fight. There are many people after me that are going to still continue. You are part of that fight. I'm part of this fight. Many other amazing people, whether it happens to be Laverne Cox in her own way, or Alexandra Billings in their own way, or Shakina Nafak, or MJ Rodriguez, Dominic Jackson. We're all fighting it in our own way. This is how I fight it, because again, we've all tried to find our own box, and I'm also doing the same thing, and I'm trying to represent my Middle Eastern, North African trans community, and try to get people to see us in more nuanced ways. So the one good thing about it is, there was a time I thought, well, I have to succeed. Now I've realized, well, even if I don't succeed, if I can just put the seed out there, there are going to be many people that are going to, kind of like take the mantle after me and do more amazing things beyond my wildest imagination. So all I have to do is just do my part as best as I can. And then there are going to be amazing people after me. And in that sense, it's like, I just feel like it's so wonderful, because I'm just a link in this large chain of change. And in that sense, whatever I can't do, I know there'll be people after me that will do more, do better, and make all of us proud. So I'm just doing my part as just one single member in this long, long journey.
Yeah. And so the next question I was going to ask was, who are other trans folks who are doing good work that you think people should know about? But you answered it.
I mean, there are more people, but I would say
Of course there are. If you want to throw more names out, feel free to.
I will be like people that I look up to, people that I want to learn from. Alexandra Billings, I have such great respect for their candor, their generosity, their straightforward attitude. Like, they call shit, and just the way that they do it is like, it's almost like I want to study every video they put up on Instagram. So if you want to look somebody up, Alexandra Billings is an amazing person. Laverne, obviously. But there are also other people, MJ Rodriguez, India Moore, Dominic Jackson, Shakina Nafak, Anish Sheth. They are just these amazing people who I've had the pleasure of knowing, of watching them work, of listening to them, but also people who are not in entertainment. My very good friend, who I knew her when she was in New York. This is like, 15, 16 years ago. And now they're a representative, I believe, in the state legislature in Colorado, Brianna Titone. So I also, one of the things I want to put out here, because we think that the only way we can make change is if we become actors. Not everybody's meant to be an actor. Not every trans and non-binary individual is necessarily a performer. But there are people in government, in science, in local government, that normalization comes in many different ways. And I applaud all of those people. So I don't want anybody to watch this and I'm like, okay, the only way a trans person can make change is be an actor. No, I'm an actor because that's what I do, because that speaks to me. If I was going to be a politician, I imagine that I would try to do it with the same kind of tenacity and grace that I value in other people. And even more importantly, I want to invite people to look into their own local communities, because all of these people that I talk about, they came from somewhere, an individual place, an individual town, an individual city. So look in your local areas, learn from other people in your community, be inspired by them, support them, because it's so easy to now support Laverne, but Laverne doesn't necessarily need that kind of support now because of where she is. Don't get me wrong, like, don't stop loving Laverne because she's awesome. But there are also a lot of people who are not as well known, who are doing amazing grassroots work, which is not necessarily glitzy and fancy, so it doesn't get a lot of airtime. But they're still doing amazing things on local level, in towns and cities across the country and across the world, and they need your love and support, and in some cases even financial support, more than the people that I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. This has been so amazing. I have a few more questions for you, but we're down to the fun stuff now. I hope this has all been fun for you.
I mean, I hope your audience is enjoying this, because I always love talking to you. So,
but we're down to the fun stuff. These are questions I really love asking, because I feel like we don't get asked them anymore, like in like standard interviews or in like adult life. And first thing, I ask this on every episode of this show: what is your comfort food, comfort movie, and comfort music? What just centers you, calms you down?
Okay. I will give you 3 comfort foods that I love. One of my absolute comfort foods is a Persian dish that my mom makes for me, and my dad used to make for me, and since my dad's passing, my mom sometimes makes it for me. It's very basic. It's like it's rice, it's yellow beans, and sauteed onions and turmeric. It's not fancy, but I love it. It's one of my comfort foods. I love fried chicken. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's just nothing else that would solve it. And I love salads. I know, sue me. I love salads. I love a good salad. I love a good, crispy, crunchy salad with nice lemon and salt and olive oil. And pepper. And I want it crunchy and green. Yum, yum. See, that's how I get to have my skin like this in my early 40s, Comfort food, different people have different things. It's just, I think part of it is nostalgia. Part of it is our tummy. All tummies are different. Something that sits well with you. For me, it's my background being an immigrant, something that kind of like has a good smell of home, sort of. That's my comfort food. The other one was comfort movie.
Yeah, comfort movie and comfort music.
Comfort movie. Oh my God, there are just so many. I think one of my absolute biggest comfort movies is probably Sound of Music. And Pauline Kael can just say whatever she wants. She can say it's a movie that sucks. It brings me great comfort. I like Maria von Trapp singing about whatever it is that she sings about. I love that movie. It's about humanity. It speaks to me. And also Auntie Mame. I mean, who doesn't love Auntie Mame? Rosalind Russell playing Auntie Mame. By the way, as dream roles go, you watch it, Sammie. One day I'm gonna play Auntie Mame.
I'm
putting it out there.
I believe you heard it here first, folks.
Universe, one day I'm gonna play Auntie Mame, and I'm gonna play the heck out of it. And comfort music, I feel that it differs from time to time. I have a very specific music taste. Like, I like late 70s disco. I like disco songs that you don't hear usually. So not necessarily I Will Survive or I don't know, Shake Your Groovy Thing, White Boy, or whatever the song was. Songs that have like a nice beat, but sometimes 80s pop. I'm rediscovering Pet Shop Boys. Do not judge me. I mean, you can judge me if you want, but I'm
No judgment.
discovering Pet Shop Boys. Like, It's a Sin and The Way It Used to Be. God knows I've been listening to those two songs on loop for a few months now. I'm open to music. I love jazz. I like soul. Depends on the day. As I've grown, I feel that different songs can bring me comfort at different times, depending on how I'm feeling. But if I was going to say my top, I love Billie Holiday. Ms. Day, oh my God, that voice, the pain, the depth of that voice, and just there's something so magical in her voice.
Absolutely.
See, if I had to, like, you made me, kind of like squeeze it down. If I had to do one, Billie Holiday. There's just some grace and grit in her singing that I've never heard in anybody else's voice.
Yeah, no one's gonna argue with that answer. So two more questions.
You can throw as many questions as you want at me.
Well, I have two, and these are, when are you going to be asked this in an interview? What's your favorite color? Right?
What's my favorite color? In all honesty, I love yellow. I love yellow. My apartment, the walls are kind of like a pale canary yellow. I like yellow. It makes me think of sunshine and light and joy. Yellow. Also, with my olive complexion, it looks good on me.
My dog, I don't know if you heard her. My dog agrees. She's like, yes, I like yellow.
Your dog, thank your dog. Your dog has great taste.
So, final question, and it's funny. She interrupts. What's your favorite animal? She says it better be dog.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm a cat mama, but I love animals. Even before I had a pet, I'd be the person in New York. I'd be like talking to people's pets as they're just passing me by on the sidewalk. Probably their owners thinking, "Who is this weird person? Why is she talking to my pet?" I love animals. I like, I mean, I've had my cat now for 10 years. But I loved cats before I even had one. I love dogs. I think somewhere in my broken heart, I just love to love these animals because their love is so pure, so unpretentious. Sure, it's based on need. Like, I need you and I love you. But sometimes I look at my cat and I am amazed by the fact that this creature, this tiny little creature laying next to me, she can look at me and feel safe with me. And that's a privilege.
Absolutely.
And it like sometimes she gives me this eye of love. And if I've been like pissed off at her before because I'm like, I was just doing a self-tape and you had to meow in the middle of that. But then afterwards she's like, hi, I love you. And it's kind of like the first day I ever met her when she was 7 weeks old and she fit in the palms of my hat. And every time she meowed that first day, I tell the story often. Every time she meowed, I started crying because somewhere in me, the maternal voice in me was like, This little kitten is calling her mama. And I wish that we lived in a world that we would look at all living animals that way, that we would look at each other that way and treat each other with kindness and generosity. I'm the kind of person, I have no problem holding a door for you, but you better acknowledge that another human being held a door for you. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you, one says thank you. It's society, and how we treat each other creates the kind of society we live in. And as you know, we now live in a society which is very clear that so many of us do not respect each other, that do not respect each other's livelihood, each other's health. It comes down to, vaccination, wearing masks, all of that stuff. And it's become so extremely clear and visually clear how we think of our brothers and sisters and gender nonconforming siblings in this society, and how we value their place in it as well. And it's very sad. It's very sad that that's how it is. But in my way, I don't have to agree with someone to believe that they should be respected. That doesn't mean that I would put up with bullshit if I don't, because you know me that well. I do not. But I believe we're all human beings. We're all living beings. And as such, we deserve that respect. That's what I believe. That's kind of like where I interact with the world around me from. And that's what I preach. If you go on my page, you see if somebody, is trolling me. I don't like to get down to cursing and all of that. I mean, I speak my truth, but I just don't believe that cursing solves anything, because it dirties your soul. It doesn't do anything to the other person.
Well, Pooya, thank you so much.
I know you're done with me. You're tired of me, Sammie. So typical.
No, listen, I would talk to you forever. I would talk to you for that. This would be 2 hours long if it could be.
Oh God, that audience would curse both of us. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for asking me again. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Yeah, and everybody, I hope you enjoy Trans Talks. We will be back in a few weeks. We're leaving the weekly format. We will have an episode most weeks. We are putting together some amazing interviews for you. If you follow us on Facebook at We Are Trans, and Facebook at We Are Trans Official, and Twitter at We Are Trans One, you can stay up to date on all of that information. Pooya, where can they follow you?
Well, on Instagram is probably the best thing, at Pooyaland. That's Pooyaland. Like Disneyland, but Pooya. And the same thing on Twitter. I'm not as active on Twitter. Sorry, I can't be as active on everything. But Instagram and Facebook, Pooyaland, the same way. Which I also want to say, We Are Trans should also expand its existence into Instagram.
It's been the plan, but I run enough things that I've essentially told everyone else involved with We Are Transit, one of you's got to do the Instagram. So
okay.
When one of them does it, we'll have an Instagram. I have my own Instagram. I run 3 Twitters.
Well, I mean, okay. Girl. No, but I look forward to that day. And I just want to applaud you for what you do, for creating this platform for the community, both to come and talk as well as listen. And I'm very grateful for you and people like you who do that. So rock on that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the good work you do. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Pooya, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And
You
that
too, my
goes,
friend.
and that goes. I think you will agree. I think that goes for everyone watching as well. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, goodbye, everybody.
Much love to all of you. Be safe. Wear your mask.